you guys think you can see Christmas decor in the background, they can't. No, what are you talking about? It's not Christmas yet. It's not Christmas time yet. Hello everyone, it's Belle. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hello, and if you've come back, thank you so much. Today's video is going to be almost like a little bit of a reflection on all of the 2025 new releases that I have read. I have read a total of 27. I hope that I haven't miscounted or missed some, but I think that is pretty good. I think so far this year I've read around 77 books, so 27 of those books have been new releases. I'm gonna go through them all with you guys and I guess just give you my 2 cents as to whether or not A, I liked them, B, they lived up to the hype, if they were like an anticipated sequel or what have you, or, you know, C, if I hated them, which yeah, unfortunately happened with quite a few of these books. I'm gonna try to do them in publication order. I did try to read most of these as close to their release date as possible, but yeah, obviously if there are some new releases missing off of this list, it is because I've obviously not read them, so apologies in advance. Anyways, I'm gonna stop yapping. You guys know the drill. Let's get comfy, let's get cozy, and let's get right on into this video. First up, the very first book that I actually read this year was a new release, and it was Deep End. This is by Ali Hazelwood. This was her sports romance debut, and I think so many people were excited to read this book. If you're unfamiliar, this is the romance between a swimmer and a diver, which I now know the difference between. So you have a diver and you have like an Olympic swimmer, if that makes sense. This was something that I think was marketed to be incredibly spicy. There are BDSM elements within this book, and I think people, myself included, was sort of expecting a very full-on book. This original title was Wet, spelled W-H-E-T, which I still think is one of the saddest losses of 2025. I really thought that was such a great title, but that's neither here nor there. Now, I feel pretty neutral about this book. I think I ended up giving it like a 4-star. I liked it, but I didn't love it. There were a few things in here in terms of like her best friend having really contrasting thoughts, feelings, and then like decision making. It was just like so like whiplashy, if you will. Again, I just don't think that like you could call this a BDSM. It kind of was, but like it just didn't work in a college sports romance sort of setting. I feel like you have to be able to blend them really nicely. You guys know I'm an Ali Hazelwood stan. I really just love pretty much everything that she does. So I was a tiny bit disappointed, but the book was still solid, if that makes sense. So I'm happy with this one being a 4-star. I just think it could have been tweaked a tiny bit and it would have been amazing. I know a lot of people actually gave this like a 5-star, so that's just my opinion. Next up was actually Phantom. This is by H.C. Carlton. This is part of the Cat and Mouse universe. So if you're unaware, in the, you know, Cat and Mouse duet, Adeline, our female main character, she moves into this manor that her great grandmother Gigi left her. And this is actually Gigi's origin story. So it is set in, I think, the 1950s or the 1940s. Let me just have a look. Yeah, 1940s Italian-American gangster sort of style. I adored this book. I think once you're also in the lore of the world and the universe, I think this was like very much a needed novella. I think there have been a few additions to this universe in terms of prequels and sequels and novellas that weren't really needed. I'm mainly talking about things like Where's Molly? Like, I didn't think we needed that book. This book, I really truly understand why HD wrote it. I really enjoyed it. I really love a book that can really transport you to a different time, and I really felt like this one did. It also had some really good nods and callbacks to Zaid and Addie, and I just had a really good time. I usually don't give novellas anything higher than a 4-star, so this was a perfect 4-star novella. Next up, probably the biggest romantasy, if not release, of this year. It is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, which of course is book 3 in the Empyrean series. This book came out at the very tippity top of the year in January, I think around like January 19th or something like that. This was a book that half the world was waiting for and itching for and so excited to get their hands on. What I've learned a lot about myself this year in terms of romantasy is I don't love the like, let's spend the whole book on a road trip vibe. I think it's okay for like book 3, 4, what have you, because the world's established, the characters and the relationships are established, but I usually find that that is really slow. That is sort of how I felt about this, but I still really loved this book. I know this was one that I guess people were either like, you love it or you hate it. Some people really took a long time to get into this, and I definitely feel like this is very reminiscent reminiscent of Iron Flame in terms of pacing. I definitely feel like it was like, let's go on a quest and let's do this like over and over and over and over and over again. I feel like we needed to break it up a tiny bit. However, I did lose my mind at the ending and I still think about it to this day. And I know for a fact that book 4, if it is done well, and I'm happy to wait as long as she needs for her to write it, if it is done right and if it is done well, it is going to be the best book in the series because the setup is immaculate and it is going to be so great. There is just something about Fourth Wing and this series. It is done so well, I think, as well as caring so much about our main couple and them as individuals, like the entire world that's been built around them. I really think it is very reminiscent of, you know, ACOTAR and the Mortal Instruments series and things like that, where you just care so deeply because it is written so well. It's so entertaining to come back to it time and time again. So yeah, I think I ended up giving this a 4.5, but then I like bumped it to a 4.75 because the ending just like literally ruined my life. Next up is actually a release from one of our local Aussie besties. I have The Other Brother by Tierney Page. If you guys aren't aware, Tierney is an Australian book influencer and now an author, which is so exciting. Tierney actually sent me an e-arc of this in January and then Hachette sent me the arc in July when it released. This was really fun. This was like a ex-boyfriend's brother rock star romance set in London. It was really fun, super strong for a debut novel. I just had a really good time. I'm also, again, really invested in the world and the side plots and the other characters. So I'm very excited for book 2, which I now know has a title and I believe is getting published in January. So I can't wait to see what this girl does. So I think I ended up giving this a 4-star. It was solid. I do still think that obviously like Tierney is still finding her footing as a writer and I can't wait to see her grow and blossom as she does so. Definitely just was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed reading this one. Up next, I have a book that I don't even think was on my radar, but Penguin sent it to me and it was called Our Infinite Fates. This is by Laura Stephen. I have read nothing by this author before and I now know that they actually go by multiple different pen names, which is really exciting. The concept of this one here is you basically have two people who have their lives tied together and in every single lifetime they are fated to find each other, fall in love and kill each other before they turn 18. So it is almost like they are stuck in this repetitive cycle year after year, decade after decade, like forever and forever and forever. And you're basically trying to figure out A, why this is happening and B, if they are ever going to break this cycle. It is a really interesting romantasy that I really enjoyed. I was so surprised how much I ended up loving this book. I cried a lot. I really get so entangled in a romantasy that like things like this, I just loved it. I know some people that didn't, but I really did like it. It is slow. I've said this to a lot of people when I recommend this book. I would recommend this to people who like slow burn, historical, detailed, like romantasy, but the romance is like a tiny bit, but you're really spending a lot of time like traveling through the different decades and the cultures and things like that. It's definitely a slow romantasy, so nothing fast paced or action packed, but like honestly so worth the payoff in the end. Here is one that I am so nervous to talk about because I just did not like this book. It was Wild Side by Elsie Silver. Now here's the thing, you guys know Elsie Silver is one of my favorite authors ever. She's honestly a go-to. I recommend her books till the cows come home, and after coming off the back of Wild Eyes, which was the book previously in this series, I was just so giddy because that book, honestly, it is now one of my like all-time favorite books by her. It was like a single dad and she was a singer. So good. And when I heard that this was going to be marriage of convenience, he's a wrestler, again co-parenting, single dad, enemies to lovers type of vibe, I was like, yes, let's go. This is going to be so good. This is one where I feel like, and I'm going to say this a lot throughout the video today, this was a book that I do not think was given enough love on the editing floor and did not get enough time to marinate. Elsie Silver is now an author similar to Anna Huang and Morgan Elizabeth, where they are pumping these books out, and there is nothing wrong with doing that. I just think that they need to make sure that they are still giving enough love that they would to a book that, you know, takes them a year to write or a year and a half to write. You know what I'm saying? I know authors who pump out books so quickly and they are of the highest quality, and I think that's sort of what this one was lacking. I really feel like for a series that is set around single dads and single parents, like we did not see enough interaction between this couple and the child in this story, which is what is so special about this series so far. I also just feel like we went from like hate to love, rivals to lovers. Like so quickly we went to lovers and I was like, what is going on? Like whiplash going on here. I didn't like it. I gave this book 3 stars, which is so crazy. This is probably my least favorite Elsie Silver book other than maybe like Hopeless. I still think I liked Hopeless to some degree in some capacity, but that was a big flop from Miss Silver, unfortunately. Speaking of Morgan Elizabeth, I then have Never Been Worse, which is book 3 in the Evergreen Harbor series. You guys know I talk about Passenger Princess all the time. It is one of my favorites. It is just the most Barbie coded book, and I was very excited after reading that to sort of see where the series was going to go. Book 2 was okay, and then book 3 I was really excited for again because it was a marriage of convenience rockstar romance, which are 2 things that I do tend to really enjoy. This book here started out really strong. I'd like to say for the first 100 pages I was really engaged, super gripped. I was having the best time. I was giggling, I was kicking my feet. I then just got like super bored and super over it because like the pacing was all off. Again, I could tell that this book was so rushed, which is so sad because the setup had so much potential. It was like really disheartening to see that it wasn't given that time to be something great like Passenger Princess was. He also kept calling her little wife and I was like, okay, how many times are we gonna say this? Like, take a shot every time you say little wife. Like, it was just too much. So yeah, I think I ended up also giving this like a 3 or maybe a 3.25. This was sort of the start of the decline of Morgan Elizabeth for me, which is really sad because I've actually really loved 2 of her books. I gave them really high ratings. She's just such an inconsistent author for me. Alrighty, next up is a book by B.K. Borison and it is First Time Caller. This book honestly was such a surprise to me because I heard good things about it, but I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. For those who are unaware, this is a Sleepless in Seattle inspired story. You have a single mum whose daughter jumps onto this like late night radio talk show that this guy here runs, and she's basically like, you need to give my mom dating advice, we need to set my mom up because she's single and blah 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 blah. And then she basically walks into her daughter doing this. She's like, give me this phone. Aiden and Lucy spend basically all night together on the phone over this podcast, and this one particular episode just goes viral. So the studio asks her if she would like to come on, and basically they will like do a little late night segment and show where they try to help her find love, which is really cool. I loved this book, guys. It was a classic rom-com done so well, and because I do read so much romance now, it really takes like special sauce for me to give a book 5 stars, especially if it's not an emotional romance. I usually only give emotional romances 5 stars now, but for a cheesy rom-com to get 5 stars, it has to have something special, and that is what this book had. I did read this in a 24-hour reading challenge, but if I didn't anyways, I probably would have consumed it so fast because it was just so well done. Like, if you just want something, especially to even get you into the adult romance genre, I cannot recommend this one enough. It was just so good. Next one is one that I'm kind of scared to talk about, but like for good reasons and for bad reasons. Anyways, I have Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Now, before we talk about this one, I feel like I've had to say this every time I talk about this book this year. I am a Hunger Games fan, and I know a lot of people say like, I love the Hunger Games. No, I was sick and twisted as a child, okay? I literally was so unhealthily hyperfixated on these books and in this world. I literally had a countdown on my fridge to when the trailer came out for the movie, when the movie came out. I would literally go to the midnight premieres, dressed up. I would reread the books every single day. Like, I would not read anything else but the Hunger Games. Like, I had Josh Hutcherson posters everywhere, okay? Like, it was a problem. Anyways, not only just like the movies, but I loved the books so much, and this world and this story means so much to me that I was so excited to get Hamish's story because he is just such a complex and layered character. We see a little bit of his story in Catching Fire in the book. They actually have Katniss and Peter rewatch all of the Victor's games, and we watch Hamish's games. So we know a little bit as to what the story was going to be before sort of starting it. And I really enjoyed this book, okay? So let me just put that out there first. I really like this book. However, my reading experience was ruined. I feel like I've said this a few times now. From influencers with bigger accounts thinking it's okay to post spoilers and quotes of the book quite literally 2 days after its release. I feel like now a lot of the girls have learned their lesson, but it is just not fair. I understand that you want to get views and attraction whilst the hype is high, but there is a way to do that without spoiling massive parts of this book. Basically, the epilogue was spoiled for me, and if you've read the book, you know how impactful that would have been if you read that, you know, without knowing what was going on. So I know what was happening in that epilogue and who made an appearance in that epilogue, and it really ruined the experience for me. So because of that, I gave the book like a 4.25 stars. And I have had that many people in my comments being like, why didn't you give it 5 stars anyway? Like, why would you give the book 4 stars? Like, just because someone spoiled it for you? Like, it's obviously a 5-star book. I'm like, sorry, that was my reading experience. I'm not just going to give a book 5 stars because it deserves to have 5 stars because it's part of the Hunger Games. Like, no, I didn't give The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes 5 stars, and that wasn't spoiled for me, but I didn't like it as much as the main series, you know what I mean? So like, I would like to do a reread where I sort of do the entire series now, not just the trilogy, but do all 5 books just to fully immerse myself. I may really end up having a better emotional experience, you know, when it's not as fresh in my mind. Next up, I have Wild and Wrangled, which is the 4th and final book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I just had so much writing on this book. I think I really enjoyed the series as a whole, but none of the books had given me a 5-star yet, right? So I was like, oh, the concept of this could have been incredible, right? It is childhood friends to lovers, second chance. I was so excited for this. And I will say, you guys, this really lived up to the hype, but it did not get the 5-star. None of Lila Sage's books have given me 5-star feelings yet, but this one came pretty close. I believe I gave this a 4.75 star. I just really liked it. There was more emotional elements in this story. You guys know I'm a sucker for childhood friends to lovers. There was like the letters and things like that. I just really liked it. But again, I was just missing a tiny bit of the special sauce that could have tipped it over into 5-star territory for me. So yeah, this one's pretty solid. This was definitely one of the new releases this year that I was like, had high expectations for, and you know, got what I wanted. So yeah, pretty happy. I read like cowboy book after cowboy book, and I read Riding the High. This is by Paisley Hope, which is the 3rd book in the Silver Pine series. If you guys have not read this series yet, like literally, what are you doing? It is so good. Honestly, I feel like Paisley wrote this book for me because the combination of tropes in this, when I heard about them, even before I read the book, was just insane. This is single dad and the nanny, but it is also marriage in Vegas, marriage of convenience. Nobody understands the absolute amount of feral I become when a book has the marriage in Vegas trope. I don't know what it is. I just love it, right? It is a micro trope that I'm like, I love it so much. So good. I loved this book. This was a 5-star cowboy romance book. This is how you do a 5-star cowboy romance book. There was depth to this. Again, there was history between our 2 love interests and main characters. Like, I just had so much fun. I cried. I like put little pictures in this one. I think there's a one of me like crying maybe. You know, I love a book when I do stuff like this. So can't really complain about this one here. I also just got sent Freeing the Wild. Where is it? Freeing the Wild, which is book number 4, which comes out, actually I think it came out today, which is really exciting. So I can't wait to get to that. I'm very excited to be in this world again. If you haven't read this series, like please do. If you love the Chestnut Spring series, you will love this series. Okay, next up I have Great Big Beautiful Life. This is by Emily Henry, which again, I really think was one of the biggest releases of this year that people were anticipating. I was very kindly sent an early copy of this one too, which was such a surprise considering I don't think I've ever sort of mentioned that I'm a big Emily Henry fan because I like her books, but I wouldn't say I'm like a diehard fan, and I know so many people are. For those who don't know the concept of this one here, it is about 2 writers who are vying for the chance to write the memoir of this like very famous actress. Think like Evelyn Hugo vibes, but you sort of have 2 rival writers trying to, you know, vie for the chance to have their version of the story be picked by this famous actress. I liked this book when it started out. However, I think when you're gonna do like a general fiction with a small minor like romance plot, you need to create equal intrigue in both the main plot with the romance, right? I have read general fiction books like this before where like I'm more intrigued in the plot than the romance, and I found with this one the plot was so boring to the point where I was like waiting for the romance because I was like, this is like pulling teeth. If I didn't say it already, I DNF'd this book. I then like a few months later found out the ending and I went, you're actually lying. Like, I'm glad I didn't finish it because what a waste of my time. What a waste of my time. So sorry, Emily Henry fans. I also know that a lot of people felt the same way about this, that they just did not like it and it didn't feel like Emily Henry. Next up, I have another little old romantasy, and I have The Rose Bargain. This is by Sasha Payton Smith. I love this book. Every time I pull this book off my shelf, A, I forget that I have it, but B, I'm like, why don't I talk about this book more? This is almost like a Hunger Games style, selection inspired, Bridgerton-esque romantasy, but with fairies. Like, it's so cool. You're in this world where basically like during the season, you know, Bridgerton, how they have like the marriage mart and there's a season where like with every season season, like the eligible, you know, debutantes go and put themselves on the mark to find a husband. But with this one here, what they do is they'll go and see the queen and they'll make a bargain with her. So they might take off the top of their ear for a beautiful singing voice, or they might like get a beauty mark in exchange for piano skills, something like that, right? That is the usual trade-off before the marriage season sort of starts. But in this year's season, basically the queen lets the debutantes know that her son Bram is looking for a wife. So they can either do one of two things. They can still make their deal as usual and enter the marriage mart as they like, or they can compete for her son's hand, right? They can compete in this like tournament competition to win the prince's hand. However, if they decide to do that, they can never marry. If they decide to compete, they can never join the season. So like, it's got a very cool concept. I loved this book. I read it so fast. I cannot wait for book 2. I ended up giving it 4.75 star, so close to the 5-star. I'm really excited for book 2. The setup was super strong. So yeah, I'm living la vida loca with this one. A lot of romantasy like new releases this year, you guys. It's kind of crazy. Next up, I have Fearless by Lauren Roberts, which was the conclusion to the Powerless trilogy. However, Miss Girl just can't stop spitting out novellas. I still haven't read the Fearful novella yet. I don't even think I really want to. Anyways, for those who haven't seen me before and didn't see my journey of this year, I actually binged all 3 of these books back to back to back over the weekend that this one actually released, which is really funny. I just felt like with it coming out, I was like worried about getting major spoilers for the end of the series before I had even started the first one. So I was like, this is the perfect time to do so. Whilst I understand there's a lot of controversy around this series and the story, I still had a lot of fun reading them, and I was very excited to see how it was going to conclude. And here are my thoughts on this book. With Lauren Roberts, I feel like she is so strong at writing banter and romantic elements. I think she would thrive as a romance author, but when it comes to writing her plot and her world building for her fantasy element of her, you know, her story, it is a lot weaker. So when it came to this book, I was like, what are we gonna do here? Because obviously the second book ended on a massive cliffhanger. When I heard that we were gonna dig up crumbs from the first book and do a Hunger Games Catching Fire, I was like, what is this? I kind of was really annoyed that that was the premise of the third book. I think it's lazy. I'm really sorry, because like we didn't need to do that. At the same time, I cried like a little bubba. I cried like a little baby, because I think, again, she's so good at writing emotional, tender moments, and you really do build such love for all of the characters, but especially our like main 3, our trio in the story. Just love them so much, and I would definitely see myself rereading this series, especially on audio. I have to give all of my flowers to the audiobook narrators. They do such an incredible job. Yeah, I think I ended up giving this a 4.7 or 4.5. Not better than Powerless. It was like still good for different reasons, you know what I mean? Next up is Watch Me. This is by Tahara Murphy, which is a new spin-off series from the Shatter Me series. This follows the now grown-up brother of Aaron Warner. So if you know the series, you know who I am talking about. I won't say names so that there's no spoilers. I was so excited to read this book and see where it was going to go, because obviously in the Shatter Me series, this male main character is quite young. Seeing him grown up and what his personality ended up being, I listened to this on audio, and when I tell you, I was kicking my feet in public out on my walk, and I'm like, I'm having the best time. It's that serious. I loved him. I didn't like her. I did not like this female main character. She was a wet blanket. She was rude and she was boring. I have never read such a plain and bland character before. I was like, give me more of the main character. Like, give me more of him. I don't care about her. Give me more of him. He's so funny. I am excited to see where this series goes, because I do think there is a strong enough story to continue. I really didn't think I was gonna say that, because I thought this was gonna be maybe a one-off story and one-off novella, but I'm very excited, and hopefully the female main character, you know, plants a personality and basks in it, because yeah, anyways. Next up, I have Tourist Trap. This is by Morgan Elizabeth. Like I said, this is one that honestly came out 3 months after that previous book I was telling you about. This is a summer romance between a lifeguard and her ex-boyfriend's brother. It started out really sweet. It's set in a small beach town. She goes and gets a job as a lifeguard over the summer, needs somewhere to stay, so she ends up staying with her ex-boyfriend's brother. This book took me so long to finish, and it wasn't even worth it. I actually read the E arc of this as well, and remember how I was telling you guys that I feel like she writes her books so quickly. E-arcs have spelling mistakes and what have you, but I was literally reading a scene in this book on my Kindle. The female main character said the name of the male main character from Never Been Worse, like her previous release this year. And it was during a spicy scene. I'm like, how did your female main character learn the name of this random man? You could tell she was writing them both at the same time, and that's how I'm like how? Like, how are you able to differentiate the story? This one I gave a 3-star, but I really think it could be a 2.5. Like, it was just not good. It's really sad. I know that she's just released a Christmas book, but I'm also so hesitant to even look at that until I've read maybe one of her older ones, like 'Tis the Season for Revenge, because I know that that is super, you know, popular and has really good high ratings, so we'll have to see. Next up is a little old book that I love and a story that I love and a world that I love. It is Rewind It Back by Liz Tomforty, which is the 5th and final book in the Windy City series. This to me was one of my most anticipated. If you had to give me like a top 3 or a top 5, this would 100% be near the top. This is Rio and Hallie's story. Rio is a character that we had seen throughout the entire series and we had fallen in love with. It is a childhood friends to lovers, second chance, sports romance, of course. So I was really intrigued to see where this was going to go. I loved it. Liz Tomforty can do absolutely no wrong in my eyes. All of her books have been 4.75 stars and above. That is absolutely unheard of, right? Of this series, 3 were 5 stars, 2 were 4.75. I just loved them so much. The way that this series concluded, I was in tears. I'm literally going to get emotional again thinking about it because it was just so stunning. She captures emotions and pulls at your heartstrings so well. Like, literally, when I finished this book, it was one of those things where I wanted to like pick up the first book and jump straight back in again and start all over again. Like, that's how much I loved this. I do think that the difference between this book and the middle 3 is that this one didn't give me a 5-star moment, but it was still so strong and so consistent. I loved it, and she can do no wrong in my eyes. Okay, I then have Spiral. This is by Balcabra. I understand that this came out in, I want to say February or January this year, but I did not get around to it for such a long time, and I don't know why. It was very, very, very odd of me to do so, but I guess it was my intuition because I did not like this book. I loved Collide, which was book 1. It was just so strong and I had the best time reading it. But this one, I had a real problem with the maturity of the female main character, because basically our male main character, it was like a romance between a ballerina and an ice hockey player. Our male main character was celibate and our female main character did not like that. And I said, if this becomes the conflict throughout the whole book, I am going to throw a fit. And that's exactly what happened. I then DNF'd the book when she said this line that I talk about all the time. They're doing like some sort of a spicy thing. Funny, right? Anyways, and she goes, and I'm off to space in my little rocket ship. And I was like, yeah, nah, I'm done. So that was a DNF. Real disappointing. Okay, next up I have Shield of Sparrows by Devaney Perry. Guys, I always forget that I have this book in my possession, and the size of it is absolutely diabolical. It's diabolical because it was just the main issue that I had with it. I love a big fat romantasy as much as the next girl, okay? Like, this 1,000 page chunker, read that this year, 5 stars, okay? Don't even try to tell me that I don't like long books. Don't even try to tell me. Okay. For those who don't know, Devaney Perry is usually a romance author, and this was her romantasy debut. So I was very excited because I've read a few of her books, you know, her romance books, and I really liked them. This was a romantasy that I literally could not even tell you the concept of, and it only came out in July. It was just so overcomplicated and so drawn out. The biggest issue that I had with this was pacing. I literally just feel like she was putting in pages to fill a word count, to fill a page count. I feel like maybe she felt like, oh, it's a romantasy, I have to write a big book. This book could have been at least 200 pages shorter. We still could have got the message across. We still could have. I feel like there were, again, I have the issue with let's spend the whole book going from one place to another. It's just not a strong enough plot in book 1. I need more. I need more world building. Like, I can't just be in the female main character's head the whole time, just being like, oh, let's go to this tree house. Let's do this. Let's fight this monster whilst we go to this castle. I need more, and this book just dragged so slow, which is so sad because I was so excited for it. I was just like so keen to see where it was gonna go. I think I ended up giving this a 3-star as well. The ending, however, the cliffhanger was chef's kiss, and I do fear I will be reading the second one. I don't care. I hate myself. Next up, I have a book from my bestie. It is Breaking Point by Mads Rafferty. I feel like I talk about this book all the time. For those who don't know, Mads and I became friends probably 6 months ago now when she moved close to me. I mean, we've been friends on socials for years, but we've actually been like besties for the last 6 months or so. And I hadn't read any of her books prior to meeting her in person. I just hadn't got around to them yet. But obviously this one came out a couple of months ago in August, and she sent me an early arc of it. And I was so excited to sort of see what her writing style was was like, I actually read another one of her books, which was Deadly Occupants, before this, and I loved it, gave it 5 stars, and this one was incredible. I often say to you guys that I cannot stand sports romance anymore because it is rinse and repeat, copy and paste. Everybody is writing to fill the niche of the like reverse grumpy sunshine. It's boring. Ice hockey romance can become so boring because everyone is writing the same story. What I love about this book here, yes, it is fake dating, yes, it is reverse grumpy sunshine, but what Mads does, and she is so brilliant at, is there is an emotional element to this that is so important and almost feels like a secondary character. You can have emotional plots in sports romances, but this is an emotional romance. I would like to say that this book is on the same train as something like Boys of Tommen. It is heavy, it is deep, it is incredibly sad, and I love it so much because sports romance is not touching that emotional side. It's just not. I understand having a funny, lighthearted sports romance, that's fine, but this feels like something completely new and I loved it. This was 5 stars. Every person that I've recommended this to has also loved it and given it like very, very, very high ratings, 4.5, 5 stars. It is just brilliant. It is so good. I'm actually reading book 2 right now. Mads has sent me a copy of it and I can't wait for you guys to experience where she's going with it. It's so brilliant. I then read Accomplice to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mehra, which again, top 3 most anticipated releases. I read the first 2 books in this series very early on this year and I was so excited to get my hands on this. This is the most cozy comedic romantasy that I have ever read and I love this world and this story so much. I have a really good memory of reading this book in particular over my birthday weekend. My best friend Lucy and we were like in an Airbnb while some of the girls were shopping. She was actually reading book 1 whilst I was reading book 3, and the fact that we were just both sitting there in silence and then would burst into laughter randomly at different times because we're reading this book. Hannah Nicole is so good at writing funny and like authentic comedy. It's so enjoyable. Jumping straight back into the story, you're there, like you're in the world, you know the characters so well. It is just the best time. This one for me, again, nothing is touching Assistant to the Villain. That book was so good. The only critique I had about this one here is I think we're starting to get too many point of views. Originally it was just like the villain and Evie, but you know, the last book we had 3 or 4 POVs. In this one I feel like we had 6 and I feel like it was too much. So maybe she will pull back in book 4, but I still had the best time. I then have Soul Searching. This is by Lila Sage, which was actually really highly anticipated for me. This one was announced mid-year. It is a spooky paranormal romance. Basically our female main character is like sort of psychic. She can see ghosts and things like that. And she moves back to a small town and ends up working for this guy who owns an antique shop. I DNF'd this book halfway through because I could not stand the male main character. Again, I was so disappointed in Lila Sage's writing. I'm really sad. I really like her books, but she's nothing special for me. I'm really sorry. I'm giving you my opinion and my hot takes, okay? As someone who loves reverse grumpy sunshine, I don't think it works in this setting because I think when they're going to explore these like haunted churches and houses and things like that, when he is acting like a little baby and is like, I don't want to go in there, like, don't touch me. Like, I'm like, guys, come on. You need a little bit of gusto. Like, it gave me the ick. I then have Not Safe for Work. This is by Nisha J. Tooley. I love this book. I have not read anything by this author before and I was so shocked to hear that she usually writes romantasy and this was her romance debut. This is an example, unlike Devney Perry, of an author who has crossed into a different genre and has done it effortlessly. Again, I haven't read her romantasy, so I don't know what those are like, but so strong. This is the classic workplace rivals, destination sort of conference, have to share the same bed. I had so much fun. I was reading this book and I was literally getting like the same feeling I got whilst reading Twisted Games for the first time. Like, I really loved it. I do think the ending was rushed, but otherwise super strong book and a lot of you need to read this, especially if you live in Australia. Coming into summer, you will eat this up. Next up, I have The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk. This is by Carissa Broadbent. I will say, you guys, I am only halfway through this book. I have been halfway through this book for probably like 2 to 3 months now. I loved the Nightborn duet, so The Serpent and the Wings of Night, Ashes and the Starcoast King. It was so strong. I loved those characters and I was really intrigued to see what was going to happen when we jumped into Misha's duet, but I have already spoken about the fact that the Songbird and the Heart of Stone was a 3-star, super weak. I do think that sometimes the comedic side character is not strong enough to have a leading, you know, moment. I just don't think it's a strong enough sort of personality. So that's how I feel about that. This is a book that I will finish on audio as something to listen to in the background, but it is not something that I'm reaching for. I do think that this series could have stayed as a duet. I'm really sorry. Then I have Picture Perfect. This is by Tessa Bailey. I have the biggest smile on my face because I love Tessa Bailey. I just had the best time reading this book. It is part of her Big Shot series. It's a sports romance. Like, I had so much fun. I was giddy. I was laughing. Like, just the best time. Honestly, anything by Tessa Bailey. I know some people sort of low-key wrote her off when she released those like Secretly Yours, Unfortunately Yours books. I didn't read those because I heard such bad reviews, but everything else I've read, it's just a funny, silly, good time. I really think she's an author that like has stayed consistent since her prime in like 2021, 2022. She's an author who pumps out books quickly, but they are of such good quality. So yeah, I think I gave this like a 4.5. I really liked it. Second last, I have Wild Card by Elsie Silver, which is the final book in the Rose Hill series. Now, after reading Wild Side, I was so scared for this book because I wanted to, you know, love Elsie's writing again. And when I heard this was an age gap, ex-boyfriend's dad trope, I was kind of scared because I went, oh, if she doesn't do this right, I'm gonna be really upset. This was so slay. This was the Elsie Silver that we know and love. I loved this book. Guys, I almost gave this book 5 stars, but because it took me so long to finish, I could tell that I wasn't itching to read it. I still gave it 4.75. It was so slay. Elsie is just so good at what she does. So thank God this redeemed the series. And finally, the most recent new release that I have read of this year is Mate by Ali Hazelwood, which I honestly was so gagged when I saw this little arc rock up at my door. Bride is my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. I think she just honestly, I don't know, she ate on that. She ate on that book. This is the next one. I would like to say like interconnected standalone vibes. Actually, no, I'm not going to say interconnected standalone. It is definitely like book 2. You need to know what's happening in book 1 to read book 2. I loved this. I think it was good. It was not as strong as Bride, but I liked it. I'm still wrapping my head around the werewolf of it all, the knotting of it all, but I loved it. Ali Hazelwood is so good at like cracking the most dirty, disgusting, hilarious joke, and then on the next page will write the most heartbreaking, like world-shattering, like romantic line on the next. She's so clever. I just love her. In my eyes, she can do no wrong, so this was definitely like a yes. Like, I just loved it. So you guys, those are my hot takes and my thoughts on all of the 2025 book releases I've read so far this year. Alrighty guys, that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for sticking through all the way to the end. If you did, I really, really appreciate it. There is a siren outside. I'm really, really sorry. What is your favorite new release that's come out of this year? I think if I had to pick a favorite, oh, that is so difficult. I think it's Breaking Point. I really do think it was the most, I think that's, yeah, like the strongest new release that I've read this year. As always, if you guys aren't already, you're more than welcome to follow me on my socials. I'll leave my handles on the screen and in the description box. And if you'd like to, you can like this video and subscribe to my channel and make sure that you're hitting that notification bell. That way you're notified each time a brand new video goes up. Thank you guys so much for stopping by again. I really, really appreciate it. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a lovely day or a lovely night, and I will see you all next time. Bye.